Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm here, of course, with Colleen,
Hello.
and we are also really excited to welcome back Ann Baldwin, PhD. Hi, Ann.
Hi.
Really excited. We've had Ann on the podcast a few times before. We reference her book, Reiki and Clinical Practice, quite often, and she's just amazing. Wonderful leader in the segment of the Reiki industry with Reiki research. And so we're just always so grateful for everything that she brings to Reiki and, of course, all of the things that she does. But today we're here because she has a new book, which I'm super excited about, is the vagus nerve in therapeutic practice. And you can find that on Amazon. And you can also find that, I want to make sure that I have it right, on us.singingdragon.com. Of course, we'll have all of her links, how to get a hold of her at Mind Body Science in our show notes, descriptions. And the other caveat that I want to say today is that Anne will be showing some PowerPoint slides with some diagrams that are kind of hard to explain. So definitely might be one of those ones that you want to watch. If you're listening, it might be one of those ones that you want to watch on YouTube. So welcome. We're glad to have you, Anne.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
And super exciting topic. I think probably the first place that we want to start is what is the vagus nerve and also what inspired you to write this book. But let's start off with what is the vagus nerve for those
Okay.
people that may not quite be as familiar with it.
Okay, so the vagus nerve is actually the longest nerve in the body. It goes all the way from the base of your skull, all the way to the base of your spine. So very long nerve. And it has many branches. So in fact, the word vagus is Latin for wanderer. It wanders all over the body because it has, and I'll show you in a minute a picture, a diagram of all these branches. So it has branches going to the up to each side of the neck. And those branches actually go right by the vocal cords. And it has branches going to the heart and to the lungs and to the intestine and to the bile ducts and to the kidneys. So the vagus is all over the body. And the other thing that's important is that it works collaboratively with the other cranial nerves. So the vagus nerve is what's known as a cranial nerve. And there are 12 cranial nerves, and the vagus is number 10, and it's the longest one. But it works in collaboration with the other cranial nerves, which basically serve the head area and the face. So we have cranial nerves going from the brain to the eyes, to the tongue, to the throat, to the ears. So these cranial nerves work in conjunction with the vagus nerve. So anything that is being detected in these cranial nerves is also going through the vagus nerve. Something else that's very different about the vagus nerve compared to other nerves is that most nerves are what's called either motor nerves, meaning they are used to send messages from the brain to an organ, or sensory nerves, meaning that they take information from the organ and send it back to the brain. Well, the vagus nerve does both. It has both sensory fibers and motor fibers, which means it's a two-way path. And what I should have said right at the beginning is that the vagus nerve is the major neural pathway between the brain and the body. So the vagus nerve, and as I said, it's very long and it goes all over the body. Its main function actually is to detect what's going on in your body. So, for example, what kind of hormones are being released, what kind of neurotransmitters, is there enough oxygen, are there any inflammation molecules lurking around there? All that information is going through the vagus nerve to the brain. So it's telling the brain what's going on in your body. Do you feel fine and relaxed and wonderful, or do you feel on edge and agitated? So the vagus nerve sends all that information in the form of electrical impulses to the brain. And then the brain can interpret that and do what it needs to do. Remember, the vagus nerve also sends messages back down to the body. So if you're agitated, then that information will go up the vagus nerve to the brain, and the brain will tweak things and send a message back down to the rest of the body to calm you down, mainly to the heart, actually, to calm you down. So this is a wonderful nerve because it's a two-way path. The other thing about this nerve that's different from other nerves is that it has two kinds of fibers. It has dorsal fibers, and I'll talk about what these fibers do in a minute, and ventral fibers, and they both have different roles. And some of you may have heard of the polyvagal theory, Porges' polyvagal theory. That's where it comes from, these two types of nerves in the vagus nerve. Neuron, these two kinds of fibers in the vagus nerve. So I'd just like to show you a picture. So I'm going to share my screen to make it, because I like pictures and it makes it more understandable, I think, if you can see pictures of what this nerve looks like.
So I apologize if this is a really dumb question while you're pulling this up. So I heard you use the term neuropathways. Is that exclusive to the vagus nerve, or is that all vagus nerves? I just always think of neuropathways in kind of in the brain only, or is that all nerves, or is that just the vagus nerve?
No. So you have sympathetic nerves. So they also send messages from the brain to the other parts of the body. They're just different nerves. So yeah, they're all neural pathways, not just the vagus nerve.
Gotcha. All right, so she pulled up here a slide. So it's showing the vagus nerve. So go ahead and talk us through this.
Yeah, so you can see what I mean about the wanderer. It's wandering all over the body with these branches. And so you can see the brain at the top there, and you can see the two branches of the vagus nerve that go up the neck and meet at the base of the brain. So those are the what's called the laryngeal branches, and they're important because every time, so right now I'm talking and my voice box is working and vibrating, and those vibrations are stimulating the vagus nerve. And that's why if you do singing or chanting, that's a good way to stimulate the vagus nerve, or these branches of the vagus nerve. So the interesting thing about the vagus is that it has all these different branches in different parts of the body. And so you can use different ways to activate it. And I'll tell you, actually, I should tell you right now, the reasons why it's good to activate that vagus nerve. What does it do for you? But I'll show you, maybe I'll show you that in the next slide.
I might have heard you at the Reiki retreat last year talk about, maybe it was chanting or maybe it was humming. Humming
yes,
can really activate those
laryngeal branches.
Laryngeal, thank you. Yeah.
So if you activate the branches, the vagus nerve, its big job is to just calm everything down. So that's why often, you're singing in the shower or something, and that really helps you relax, right?
Interesting. Okay.
So then you can see the heart area. You can see many branches coming off there, little branches in the heart area, the center of the chest. So there's a very impactful, the vagus has a lot of impact on the heart. And the heart sends messages, as I mentioned, to the brain through the vagus nerve. And we'll talk a bit about that later, because that's very important about the heart and the vagus nerve, because emotions are stored in the heart. And so certain emotions has been shown to actually activate the vagus nerve and make you feel better. And then lower down, you can see more branches going into the intestinal area. And that's very important because the vagus nerve is basically governs digestion, governs the movement of food along the intestine and secretion of enzymes to digest the food. So you have to have the vagus nerve for your digestion.
Interesting.
So looking at this diagram, one of the things we've really been working with is the perception triad, working with the gut brain, heart brain, and head brain. Would this be involved with that whole perception triad as well.
Oh, totally. Yes. I mean, you can see all the branches of the vagus nerve in the heart area and in the gut area, huge numbers. And so that's how the heart and the brain communicate. The heart and the gut communicate with the brain.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Also, another question I have on a personal level, because I've been having a lot of vestibular issues and balance issues. Would that also be engaged with the vagus nerve?
Yes. I mentioned the cranial nerves, and there's a cranial nerve that goes to the ears. Yes. So absolutely.
Interesting.
And in my book, I have a chapter on the stimulating that part of those cranial nerves in the ears, and you can have that done by acupuncture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, great.
Okay, so this is just showing you, this is a complicated slide, but all I want you to look at are the two arrows. There's a yellow arrow going from the medulla part of the brain to the intrinsic nervous system of the heart. So on the left, you have the brain, on the right, you have the heart. And I want you to look at this yellow arrow.
Okay.
And that yellow arrow shows the vagus nerve, one pathway of the vagus nerve that goes from the brain to the heart. Okay, so this yellow line is the part of the vagus nerve that sends messages from the brain to the heart. So the brain might need to say to the heart, okay, speed up, you need to speed up right now. And then the red arrow coming back, that's also along the vagus nerve. And this is the pathway that goes from the heart to the brain. So how you would use this, for example, say you were you're traveling, you're at the airport, and you have to catch a connecting flight, and you're late. So you run as fast as you can to the gate. And what happens when you run as fast as you can feel your heart pounding, right? It's beating faster and more forcefully. And that is because your heart is sending a message along the vagus nerve to the brain saying, hey, she's running, and I haven't got enough nutrients, and I need more glucose, and do something about it. I need more oxygen. So that message is going to the brain, and the brain says, okay, I will get everything speeded up here, and I'll make the heart beat faster so we get more blood going around more quickly, and that will give you what you need. And so that is done through this pathway of the vagus nerve. And then you get to the gate, and you've made it. You're just waiting to get on the plane. Everything's great. You stop running. And now your heart is telling the brain, okay, we don't need this heart rate to go so fast now. We're fine. And so that message goes along this red arrow. And then the brain says, okay, let's calm everything down. And it sends a message along the vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve calms everything down. Calm everything down. You don't need to pump so much, heart. Slow down. So the vagus nerve is going to make it slow down, because you don't need that extra energy anymore. So that's what I wanted to show in this diagram, the two-way communication of the vagus nerve between the heart and the rest of the body, the brain and the rest of the body, especially the heart.
Interesting. And on here too, she has the vagus nerve in yellows, parasympathetic, because there would be, listeners that would be aware of these terms, and blue, which is in a little bit of a different part of the diagram, which is sympathetic. And then the red is the afferent pathways. Is that how you pronounce that, Anne?
Yes. So the afferent pathways are the pathways going from the body to the brain. And this is going along the vagus nerve. And then the turquoise one, the sympathetic, this nerve message goes along this nerve to speed up the heart. The sympathetic speeds it up, and the parasympathetic slows it down according to need.
Okay.
And that is that always true of those two terms? Sympathetic and parasympathetic?
Absolutely, yes. Sympathetic is what's known as fight or flight. That puts you in fight or flight. parasympathetic or vagus. The vagus nerve is the largest nerve of the parasympathetic system, and that puts you in rest and digest.
I have always mixed those up.
It is
So
a
I'm
little
glad to hear it
counterintuitive.
finally.
It is counterintuitive, I feel like. And unless you know the actual, different parts of the.
So the big function of the vagus nerve is to calm everything down. I mean, obviously there are times when you need the fight or flight, you need to get to, away from something, or you need to get something done, but you have to recover from it. Because if you don't recover, then you will have chronic stress, and that has a lot of bad effects on your mind and your body.
So is that when people are in continual or chronic states of fight or flight?
Yes.
Mhm.
And the vagus nerve isn't working so well, because sometimes the vagus nerve just it packs up. It says, okay, I can't fight against this sympathetic fight or flight anymore. I'm just going to give up. And so you're not going to get such a good calming influence from the vagus nerve. So that's why we need ways to help it. So when you're stressed, the vagus nerve doesn't work so well at calming you down. So you need extra ways to help it. And that's what this book is all about. The extra things you can do to make your vagus nerve work better at calming you down.
Perfect. And I'm sure we're going to get into that because I had some questions around like exercise and stuff. And so I want to wait if we're going to have if we have slides on that. Yeah.
So I'm just going to show you the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, since that you brought this up. So these are two components of what's called the autonomic nervous system, the part of the nervous system that takes care of all of your functions that you don't even think about, like your heart beating and your breathing and your kidney secretions, etc. That's all done by the autonomic or automatic nervous system. And two branches, sympathetic on the right, speeding up, fight or flight, get things done. Parasympathetic, rest and digest, repair, maintenance. And both of these are important. And so you can see on the left, the parasympathetic, that includes the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is the long nerve with all these branches. And then remember the other cranial nerves that go into the head area and feed the eyes and the ears and the nose and the mouth and the throat and the tongue and the salivary glands, all of that. So on the left, we have the rest and digest, the slowing down. Interestingly, the parasympathetic or the vagus nerve helps stimulate saliva flow, because remember, rest and digest. If you're digesting, you're eating, you need saliva, right? To help you get that food into a good way, or a good form for the digestion to take place. So you need the saliva. Slows down the heartbeat, calming you down. And it actually does a lot more than just slowing the heartbeat. I mentioned the dorsal and the ventral fibers. The dorsal fibers, they will really slow the heart rate down. I'm sure you've heard of the freeze response, right? When you're just so terrified, all you can do is just nothing. You just like freeze. And when that happens, these are the dorsal fibers in the vagus, really slowing the heart rate down, slowing everything down, because you just have to like disappear. There's nothing else you can do. You can't get away from whatever it is. You just have to disappear, and it shuts everything down. Whereas the ventral fibers in the vagus nerve, they also go into the heart, and they don't just slow down the heart rate. They're much more subtle. They come in every now and then and give periodic reminders to the heart. Okay, just slow down a bit. Okay, just slow down a bit. Okay, just slow down a bit. And that's the ventral fibers. They keep the sympathetic and the parasympathetic in balance. So we don't have the sympathetic making you go wild and too energetic, and the parasympathetic making you just too lethargic. So it just comes in every now and then, and that happens through these ventral nerves, fibers. The ventral nerve fibers also run through those other cranial nerves to the head area. So I'll talk more about that too, because they're very important. Then the vagus nerve goes into the lungs. And when you are activating the vagus nerve, when you're in rest and digest, you don't need huge amounts of air in your lungs. So those little sacs and little airways in the lungs can narrow because they don't need to bring in so much oxygen because you're not rushing. You don't need lots of energy. The other thing that parasympathetic does, and I'm sure you recognize this, is it slows down your breathing. So when you are in a resting, relaxing state, your breathing slows down, right? When you're anxious or agitated or angry, you breathe very shallow and fast. So the breathing is going to be affected by parasympathetic and slow it down. And it works the other way too. By slowing down your breathing even more, you can activate the vagus nerve more if you need to. And that's one thing we're going to do today, slowing down the breathing to stimulate your vagus nerve even more and put you into a more relaxed state. And then we go down to the intestine, and the vagus nerve is important for getting the intestine to contract and relax so that food is pushed along, and also for regulating secretion of enzymes to digest the food. And then also feeds into the bile and the bladder, but we won't go into that here. On the other hand, the sympathetic does all the opposite things here. So speeds up the heart, inhibits digestion, etc.
Interesting.
Yeah. So basically, you can think of the vagus nerve as the antidote to the fight or flight. And it has, so the sympathetic, the main neurotransmitter is adrenaline or epinephrine. Whereas with the vagus nerve, the main neurotransmitter is acetylcholine, which slows everything down. And acetylcholine has another function. It's an anti-inflammatory agent. So that's another way that the vagus nerve can help you. A lot of people have underlying low-level inflammation, which can lead to all kinds of problems like arthritis and inflammatory bowel disease, etc. And if you can get into this relaxed state more often and stimulate the vagus nerve, then you'll get more acetylcholine released, which is an anti-inflammatory. So that's really useful. Another thing is when you're in the fight or flight, you produce more stress hormone, cortisol. And that can have problems with the immune system. If you have too much of it there too much of the time, it can inhibit your immune system. So if you can get the parasympathetic or the vagus nerve more activated, there'll be less cortisol produced, and that will help with the immune function. That's why when you're stressed, you tend to catch things that are going around more often than if you're relaxed, because your immune system isn't working so well. And then one other important thing, I mentioned the heart and these subtle reminders that the vagus nerve gives to the heart every now and then. Hey, slow down, slow down. It's not like a big order, slow down heart rate. It's every now and then, slow down, slow down. And that affects how the heart rate changes with time. So I think I have a slide of that. No, I don't. Okay. All right. So a lot of people think that when you're just sitting like we are, your heart rate is just constant, like 72 beats per minute. But actually it changes. And the healthier you are and the more relaxed you are, the more it changes. It changes according to need. And it's good that it changes because it means that your heart can adapt. Because sometimes you might need more blood suddenly. Okay, I'm having a really big thought here. I need lots of blood to go to my brain. And so your heart, if you're not stressed and your heart can adapt, it detects that, okay, she needs more blood to go to the brain. We need to increase the heart rate a bit. And then when you're done, it will bring it back down again. So that's called heart rate variability. And it's those ventral fibers in the heart, in the vagus nerve, that are responsible for doing that, for just slowing things down every now and then so that it keeps everything under control.
It's
So,
interesting. HRV is a really popular term in like fitness right now, right? People
right, yeah,
making sure that their HRV is really at good levels or good numbers. I never thought of it in those terms that you had just talked about, where, yeah, you can just easily adapt.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
But not just to exercise, but to, like you said, thinking, you know?
yes. And also it's very important to, I mean, if you're exercising, your heart rate goes up, obviously, and also your heart rate variability goes down because you're stuck in that sympathetic for the fight or flight when you're exercising. But if you practice these exercises like deep, slow breathing to stimulate the parasympathetic, you'll come down faster, you'll recover faster from your exercise, and your heart rate will go down faster, and your heart rate variability will return, so your heart can adapt more easily. So it does two things. If you do this practice, not only will it help you with calming down, but it will help you calm down more quickly.
Interesting. It's I can see that, and with too the you know, the breathing mechanisms that people are practicing when they're adapting to cold, for example, or like you said, exercise, or all of the different hard things that, would maybe normally throw us fully into fight or flight, or they're purposely throwing their body into fight or flight for this, probably this, not probably this purpose of really activating this and getting that HRV and all of these things.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's keep going.
Okay.
Now I'm so fascinated.
This shows more clearly the vagus nerve going off to all the different organs. Unfortunately, it doesn't show the laryngeal branches. I don't know why, but just imagine they're there. So this is the vagus nerve here, and it goes down and branches to the heart, to the lungs, to the liver and gallbladder, to the stomach, to the pancreas, to the intestines, to the kidneys, everywhere. And then these are the other cranial nerves that go to the eye, tears, lacrimal gland, salivary glands, eye movement. And there are other ones that are not shown here because there are 12 of these cranial nerves. And remember, they all are connected to the vagus nerve. So if you stimulate, say, the eye, like you're looking around or making eye contact, then that nerve will be activated and that will feed into the vagus nerve. So this is interesting because if you are having a conversation with someone and you're making sure you're watching them to make sure that they get what you're saying, so your eyes are moving around, your focus is changing, etc., then that is part of the social engagement. And also, of course, if you're talking, then your laryngeal branches will be stimulated, and you're moving your tongue so that.
All right, so we had some connectivity issues, but we're back. So Anne, if you want to go ahead and talk about what you were saying with the laryngeal nerves.
Yeah, so I was just talking about social engagement when you're speaking with somebody, not in an angry way, but just in a conversational way. Obviously, you're using your voice, and when you use your voice, your vocal cords vibrate, and they stimulate the vagus nerve branches because they're right close to the vocal cords. So just talking, as with singing and chanting, you're going to activate that cranial nerve. If you activate any of the cranial nerves, you'll activate the vagus nerve as well. So talking, and when you are talking to someone, you're watching to see how they're taking what you're saying. So your eyes are kind of active. So that will stimulate the optic nerve, which is another cranial nerve. Your face is moving, your facial muscles are moving because you're facial expression is changing, and that they will be activated. And smiling, that's a big one, just a big smile, even a fake smile. Just go. The fake smile is activating your facial cranial nerve, and that will activate the vagus nerve. So isn't that funny? That's how laughter yoga works partly. You just do a fake smile, and that starts activating the vagus nerve, and you start feeling good. And in the end, it's genuine.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, facial nerve. The oh yeah, the glossopharyngeal nerve. Let me think, what was that? I think that is like mouth movement. So when you're talking, your mouth is moving. So that's another reason that your vagus is activated. And then tongue movement as well. And swallowing, of course, every time you swallow, that also activates the vagus nerve. So a simple thing like having a nice conversation with someone, having a chat, is going to do all of these things to activate your vagus nerve,
Interesting.
because it works with these cranial nerves in the face and the head. And then yeah, the smiling is a big one, a big smile. Easily activate your vagus nerve.
It just, if we think of being like social creatures, it makes so much sense on why we would connect with certain people and maybe not with others because of this, activation of that parasympathetic aspect of the vagus nerve. Maybe during it we're smiling or laughing and we're having that calm or nice conversation. Or maybe even it's on a time where you're talking to somebody and you need to cry with them, that would,
Yeah. Right.
that's really interesting.
So okay, I think you did ask me a while ago. I don't think I answered your question. Why did I write the book?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the book, The Vagus Nerve in Therapeutic Practice. And the reason I wrote the book was quite a few years ago, I was teaching a course at the University of Arizona, Department of Physiology, called Physiology of Mind-Body Interactions. And this was to senior undergraduates. And these were students who were very motivated. They wanted to go to medical school or dental school or osteopathic school, or they wanted to further their education in the medical field in some way. And they were very stressed because they wanted to do well in their exams, and they had a heavy course load. So in my course, it wasn't just a lecture course, it was very practical. So I had devices, biofeedback devices with little sensors, so you could put it on your ear, it would detect your heart rate. And then you could, there was software and it was connected to your computer. So you could actually see what your heart rate variability was doing, how your heart rate was changing with time. And you could change it. So you could change your breathing and you could see how your heart rate variability changed. And of course, that's connected with the vagus nerve. So they could learn various techniques to activate the vagus nerve and then see it in real time, what was happening to their heart when they were activating their vagus nerve. So maybe they were smiling, maybe they were listening to nice music, nice relaxing music, and they could see it. They could see it in front of them, what it was doing to the vagus nerve. So this was a wonderful course for them because it gave them real practical ways to reduce their stress. And they did projects at the end as well, practical projects, and some of them did some really interesting projects. They did it in pairs, and there were these two guys, and they decided they wanted to see if having a cold shower, they'd heard that having a cold shower activated the vagus nerve, so they religiously had a cold shower every morning, and then they made their readings before and after the cold shower to see what it did to the vagus nerve.
And I would imagine that showed results from
it significantly increased, the stimulation.
That's so fun. Of course, they picked like the super hard one.
Right.
Oh, there was another two girls, they were interested in movie music. You know how
Yes.
music and movies puts you into a certain frame of mind. So they use different types of movie music to see what type put them into a more relaxed state, because they could do the readings of the vagus nerve.
Oh, that's so fun. So that
Yeah.
was the kind of the origination of the inspiration to write a book about
Yeah,
it.
and I thought,
Yeah.
okay, well, if students are finding this really useful, how about people who aren't students, just regular people? And so that's why I wrote the book. And in fact, this is what the students said. So one said, this class has been one of my favorites of all my years at the University of Arizona, and I will be incorporating the teachings into everyday life for as long as possible after I graduate. And then someone says, as a class, we persevered and navigated through the beginning of COVID in spring of 2020, a feat which should not be underestimated, and certainly one I will not forget. We all made good use of the breathing techniques you taught during that confusing time. I will always use these techniques to increase heart rate variability and activate my vagus nerve, especially as I go through dental school the next few years. And one more. Oh, no, that was it. Okay. So anyway, you can see that they really benefited. So I wrote the book for, it's for mainly for healthcare practitioners. So like Reiki practitioners or massage practitioners or anybody who is in the healthcare field. And they can see how maybe they can modify what they do with their patients or clients to use this vagus nerve stimulation as part of their treatment. It's also, anyone can read the book, even if they're not actively working in the healthcare field, because it gives you a whole range of things you can do personally to work on yourself. And there are also ways you can do things in groups, which is a lot of fun. If you have like a group of singers or a group of people doing laughter yoga or that kind of thing, then there are lots of group activities you can do as well. And of course, that brings in the social engagement, so even more activation of the vagus nerve.
I think
Fantastic.
it's in addition, I hear about the vagus nerve all the time in so many various ways. And it's great to have a book to actually be able to understand it more clearly, and not just what it is, but then how we stimulate it, how we work with it, and how we can make a difference in our own body with it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
intentionally move us out of fight or flight, and the discernment about, well, is the fight or flight real, or is it, I mean, it's always real. I don't mean to diminish it, but the fight or flight that is a chronic state, or perhaps not something that's important in that moment, to actually have the tools and to know exactly what we're doing to address the vagus nerve is fantastic.
Yeah, and the good thing about the vagus nerve is that it has all these branches going to all these organs, so there are multiple ways you can activate it. So that
And
I'm
and
just
do you
going
want
to,
to,
oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say,
I
do you
just
want,
wanted to say the name of your book again, The Vagus Nerve in Therapeutic Practice by Ann Baldwin. So, just so because in looking at Amazon, there were several different books about it, but none of them had what I would say the application that you're sharing with us about this book.
And yeah, and at the end of the book, actually, there's a whole appendix with the exercises and what exercises you can do together, and like do 3 types of exercises or something, or 2 types of exercises that go well together, that kind of thing. So another thing I didn't mention was the cranial nerve going to the nose. So aromatherapy is another way you can activate the vagus nerve. And I've done some work with horses, and we found that lavender worked very well with horses, calming them down and activating their vagus nerve. And I'm sure it's with people as well.
Good to know.
Yeah.
and we're since this is a Reiki podcast, what have you seen with Reiki and the vagus nerve? And like I think you said too, we were going to talk about a breathing exercise as well.
Yeah. Okay. So the Reiki, interestingly, when you are receiving Reiki, yes, the vagus nerve is activated, and we know that for sure because there are some studies that show that. So as you know, Reiki goes to where it's needed. So you're not going to see changes in heart rate if you're giving Reiki to someone who's already relaxed and wonderful. You're going to see it in stressed people. So in these experiments, Reiki was given to stressed people. And then we were looking for, well, if Reiki activates the vagus nerve, we should see a drop in heart rate. We should see improved heart rate variability, so the heart is more adaptable. And maybe we should see a drop in breathing rate. And there are studies that have shown that. I do have some data I can quickly show you. I actually did a study with rats that were stressed out by noise. And we found that giving Reiki reduced their heart rate, but not sham Reiki, not when someone was pretending to give Reiki. So these are stressed out rats, heart rate was high, and the Reiki reduced the heart rate. There was another study, Diaz-Rodriguez in 2011, done on nurses who were suffering from burnout. And they received either half an hour of Reiki or half an hour of pretend Reiki, sham Reiki. And then the next week they switched. So the ones who received Reiki received fake Reiki, and the ones who received fake Reiki had real Reiki. And the Reiki, but not the fake Reiki, increased their heart rate variability and made their hearts more adaptable. Another study with 66 patients with high blood pressure in 2014, they also received either Reiki or sham Reiki or just relaxation. And the Reiki group showed the biggest decrease in blood pressure. So blood pressure went down the most in the ones that had the Reiki. So these are all consistent with Reiki activating the vagus nerve, because that's what the vagus nerve does. And a few more study I did in 2017 with other investigators, we had 45 patients undergoing knee replacement surgery, and they received either Reiki, sham Reiki, or rest. And only the Reiki group showed a significant decrease in blood pressure after surgery compared to before.
And we should mention, Anne, the significant contribution that you have made to Reiki research and the Center for Reiki Research and the 125 articles in peer-reviewed scientific journals. Her other book, Reiki and Clinical Practice, a science-based guide, because truly you have been such a not only a pioneer, but a significant contributor to the the credibility of Reiki through scientific research.
Well, thank you very much. And as you can see at the bottom here, if you go to centerforreikiresearch.org, Center for Reiki Research, all one word, .org, then you can get summaries of these papers that I've mentioned, and the ones I haven't mentioned as well. So yes, definitely Reiki does activate the vagus nerve. That's great. And it seems to work through the heart, as we see, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
He's working through the heart.
I saw a few slides ago, you had some things that we can do to activate. Is that what when you were scrolling?
Yes.
Sorry to make you go back and forth, but can we take a look at those real quick?
Before I do that, this is receiving Reiki. Okay, if you're giving Reiki, that's interesting, because I'm then doing measurements on myself and also what other people have done. When I'm setting up the Reiki, okay, so I'm going through my centering and the symbols and everything. I am not in rest and digest. I'm focusing. My vagus nerve isn't stimulated when I'm doing all that. But then as soon as I go into when I've got all that done, I've set it up, and I go through, let the Reiki flow, the Reiki is flowing, then I go into the vagus stimulation, the rest and digest. And it's important, I found it's really important that you do slow down your breathing when you're giving Reiki, because if you're giving Reiki and you just breathe fast and shallow, you're not going to receive the benefits of the Reiki, of the vagus stimulation. You need to slow down your breathing while you're giving Reiki to receive those benefits. And I'm sure that's why Dr. Usui developed the Gasho breathing.
Interesting.
Yeah. But okay, so going back to what to do to stimulate the vagus nerve, I have a few slides here. So remember the cranial nerves. If you stimulate a cranial nerve, the whole vagus complex will be activated. You'll receive all the benefits. So even just eye movement, the stimulus will go to the nerves that move the eyes, and that will feed into the vagus. Smiling and laughing, we talked about this. Facial muscles, especially smiling muscles, that will put you straight into rest and digest. And then mindful eating. So not just gobbling something down 5 minutes before your next meeting, but actually enjoying it, salivating it, noticing the taste. That will definitely put you into that rest and digest. Singing and chanting, I mentioned that. Smelling certain aromas like lavender, chamomile, those two are definitely, there's evidence that show that they cause activation of the vagus nerve. And then even there's it's called the spinal accessory muscle, kind of in the neck and shoulder area. That the nerve that goes into that muscle also is a cranial nerve, goes into the vagus nerve. And if you are looking around like this, that will stimulate that nerve. And also you can have certain massage. You can ask your massage practitioner to massage that area and stimulate that nerve. That will get you relaxed.
Can the vagus nerve get kinked?
Get kinked. You mean
Like, can it be, where maybe it gets, I don't know another word to use for it. Like
Like a pinched nerve.
pinched nerve. Thank you.
I think it could, yeah.
Okay.
There are all these different branches, and maybe certain branches are more susceptible than others. But yes, I think that's true. Or it can be impaired in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Mm. Laughing. So laughing will activate the facial muscles and the lungs. Remember, there's a branch of the vagus nerve going to the lungs and the laryngeal branches. So laughing is a good one. And then deep, slow breathing. So that's what we're going to do today. Deep, slow breathing will activate the pulmonary branches of the vagus nerve. And that's a really good one, especially the out breath when you go, that is really good at activating the vagus. And then, of course, digestion. The intestinal branches of the vagus will be stimulated. So that's why you feel good after a nice big meal, nice and relaxed. And then interestingly, feelings of awe and gratitude. So say you're walking in nature and you see the beautiful trees or the river or whatever, and you're just in awe of it. That feeling of awe is felt in the heart. And it is a real, it's generated by the vagus nerve, that feeling. And when you are in that state of awe or gratitude, it's measurable. You can see that, yes, your vagus nerve is stimulated when you have those feelings. And I think that's part of, maybe that's part of the Reiki response as well.
I was going to ask if a yawn, because you're activating those, and
Yawn.
why we sometimes release and the tears, and it can be
all of it.
Yeah.
So these are ways simple ways you can activate the vagus nerve, and anyone can do it.
Wow. Well, this is, you're always such a wealth of information with all of this. I am sure we could talk for hours and hours, but as Colleen said, also we can just read your book, and it is like talking to you for hours and hours and hours. So, and all of the resources and tools that you have. But I would love to go through the breathing exercise, unless there's anything else that you wanted to add about the information about it all.
Okay, so one thing that I didn't mention is that an important thing in the book is that every exercise is illustrated by a case study of a practitioner of some kind. And these practitioners, they're all known to me personally. Most of them live in Tucson, Arizona. And so they have contributed case studies about how they modified their technique, whatever it was, to include activating the vagus nerve and the effect it had on their patient. So that's another thing that is different about this book. If we have time, I could read one of those case studies, but definitely let's do some deep, slow breathing or heart-focused breathing. And I'm going to stop the share for a minute. And I have the book here, so I'm going to read it to you and then we'll do it. And when we've done the heart focused breathing, I'm going to read actually a little case study of my own effect it had on me once of this heart focused breathing when I really needed it. And then I can finish with a poem about the importance of breathing as well. Okay, so heart focused breathing. I'll read it and then we'll do it. During heart-focused breathing, you focus your attention on your heart or chest area, and as you breathe, you imagine the breath entering or leaving your heart while breathing slightly more deeply and slowly than usual. It might be useful at first to count to 5 as you inhale and to 5 as you exhale. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. But if this makes you feel lightheaded or dizzy, reduce the count to 3 or 4. There's no need to lift your shoulders as you breathe in. This is not a chore. It should be pleasantly relaxing. And it's usual to breathe in and out of your nose, but whatever is comfortable for you. The important thing is that you're comfortable. You can do mouth breathing or nose breathing, whatever it works. I also find it helps to consciously relax your muscles on every exhale. Start with your toes on your first exhale, ending with your forehead on your last exhale. Do not forget to include your tongue and jaw. So for this, as you exhale, you can just imagine the whole body, all the muscles relaxing at once. If you find your mind wandering, just focus back on your breathing. Okay, so we'll start the heart-focused breathing if everyone's ready. Okay. So if you like, you can put your hand on your heart or your chest area. And as you breathe in, imagine the breath's going into your heart. And as you breathe out, imagine it's radiating out of your heart. And nice and deep and slow. And as you breathe out, consciously relax all your muscles. And I'm finding it actually useful to relax my facial muscles as I breathe out. My jaw, my tongue, my lips, my eyes. And you can do this with your eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter. And you can also do it if you're walking along slowly, like a meditation walk. So sometimes I will step for 4 paces breathing in and 4 paces breathing out. And if thoughts come in, doesn't matter, just let them drift away. And then focus back on your breathing. So we'll do 3 more, and as you breathe out, relax all your muscles. So how was that?
Really relaxed. I did have a few like twitches as the relaxation was coming through too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more you do it, the easier it gets as well, the smoother it gets.
Felt great. I feel great.
And that's really something very easy you can do anywhere.
Yeah.
So you can do that maybe before you can do it to prepare before something that you have to do that's difficult. You can do it while you're doing something that's difficult, and then you can do it to recover.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love that. So easy and accessible. And you said it doesn't matter if you breathe out of your nose or your, because I have the, like, I always want to breathe in through my nose and out through my mouth. But did I hear you say that it's in and out through your nose? Like, I know there's not a requirement, but
Yeah, I do in and out through the nose, but whatever is comfortable for you.
yeah. And maybe even appropriate for where you're at.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome.
So, okay.
I was just going to ask a quick question. I have a quick question. When it comes to exercise, like you were saying that the brain and the nerves sending the signals to your heart, and how sometimes with exercise it can be really beneficial to have a really, like a short burst of energy or get your heart rate up really high, and then you're consciously doing that to then have those different hormones that are released. How does that play into the vagus nerve? Because wouldn't that also kind of simulate a fight or flight?
Yeah. So yeah, you can, if you're doing intense exercise, absolutely, you stimulate the fight or flight. But if you've been doing a daily practice of vagus stimulation, whatever, like the breathing or aromatherapy or whatever you want, or listening to relaxing music, then when you stop doing the intense activity, you will come down much faster because your vagus nerve will be primed.
Gotcha. Because it can feel so good when you're done, with that. So interesting.
Yeah, it's very good to challenge your system, prime it, challenge it, and then come down again.
And then you get the benefits. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Anne, is there anything else before we go ahead and wrap up?
Yeah, so I'd just like to read a little case study of my own about the breathing, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Oh, and also we had the summit that we wanted to mention as well.
Okay, so the power of breathing to banish frustration. I was returning from a conference, Horses and Humans, in North Carolina. It was wonderful to hear about the stories and supporting data from other researchers and equine professionals about all the ways that horses can help us self-regulate. For example, magnetic resonance imaging brain scans taken of military veterans before and after they participated in an equine assisted learning program over several weeks showed that the part of the brain responsible for their reward reaction became better connected to other parts of the brain, meaning that they could experience joy and pleasure at a more conscious level. My journey home taught me something else. The importance of being able to effectively self-regulate when I was in danger of getting so mad that my body would be damaged by the release of inappropriate hormones and neurotransmitters. This was because after entering the airport, I encountered a totally confused mob and I was unable to find out what to do. Instead of joining the fray, I stood still, focused on my heart, and imagined the breath going into my heart on the inhale and out of my heart on the exhale. With every exhale, I consciously relaxed all my muscles from my toes to my forehead, including my eyes and my tongue. After a few minutes, I looked around and discovered that I needed to join a slowly moving, snaking line to get through the Transportation Security Administration pre-check. It took 90 minutes, and that was in the fast lane. I do not like queues and avoid them whenever possible, but that time I had no choice. Most people were desperately tapping on their cell phones. For what reason, I have no idea, because it didn't get them through any more quickly. I kept things simple and just focused on my heart breath and relaxing my muscles. We eventually boarded the plane and were ready to go. Success! But no, we had to wait another 2 hours on the runway because the caterers had not yet loaded the special food on the plane for the first class passengers. By that time, I decided I needed a change, so I focused on imagining inhaling through my crown until the breath reached just above my navel, and then exhaling through every pore of my body. I'm glad to say that worked, and I avoided getting anxious, frustrated, and sick.
Oh, that's that's really cute, and also wasn't at the time, I'm sure. I love that case study. Yeah, that's really I love that. Also the sick aspect, right? Traveling on planes. And right now, kids are back to school, or have been in school for maybe a couple months. Yeah, that's huge.
And if you don't mind, I'll read this short poem about the breathing, because
Yeah.
that's another thing that's included in the book. Little poems and little things that aren't just science.
That's fantastic.
So this is called Our True Heritage, and it's by a Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh. The cosmos is filled with precious gems. I want to offer a handful of them to you this morning. Each moment you are alive is a gem, shining through and containing earth and sky, water and clouds. It needs you to breathe gently for the miracles to be displayed. Suddenly you hear the birds singing, the pines chanting, see the flowers blooming, the blue sky, the white clouds, the smile and the marvelous look of your beloved. You, the richest person on earth who have been going around begging for a living, stop being the destitute child. Come back and claim your heritage. We should enjoy our happiness and offer it to everyone. Cherish this very moment. Let go of the stream of distress and embrace life fully in your arms.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Such a wise being that graced the planet. Yeah. Well, Anne, can you mention your summit or the summit that you're participating in as well, if people want to watch and learn more too?
And get a slide so you can see the link.
Great. And we'll go ahead and also put the link in the description.
Yeah, okay. This is it, all right.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh, the Energy That Heals Summit.
Yeah, I've been getting ads for that.
Yeah, October the 8th to the 14th. And so it's several days and you can register for free. And I think how it works is that if you register, you're allowed 48 hours to see every day that you want to see. So if you wanted, I think they have every day on for 48 hours.
Great. Okay. And so the, excuse me, the name of the summit is the Energy That Heals Summit. It's October 8th through the 14th. And the link is best year. And again, we're going to put this in the description, bestyear.krtra.com. And it's got some other things. So I'm going to put that in the description. So you can go there to also find the link, or if you want to watch this, you can do that too, but we'll have it in both places.
Yeah.
So, or you could probably Google the Energy That Heals, but this link takes you directly to it.
Thank you.
Well, how exciting to also be a speaker with all these other amazing speakers.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm on a panel discussion. We're talking about biofield research and challenges and future.
Wow, thank you
That's
so
great.
much.
All right. Well, so for Anne, again, her book is The Vagus Nerve and Therapeutic Practice, and you can find it on Amazon or singingdragon.com. Also, her website is mind-body-science.com. You can find her information there. And then, of course, we'll put all of that in the description. So, Anne, thank you again. And we always love having you on. And as Colleen said, for all that you do for Reiki and all of these practices, biofield therapy and the research and all of that. And of course, with horses too. We're all
Have
horse
to
people.
mention the horses.
Yeah.
I just pulled this card with Linda Kahnov's horse deck. Just pulled this today about breath. Yeah, it's the that particular card is the language of breath. I know you're friends with her. So, yeah.
All right. Well, we better let you go. We could keep talking. So thank you again. And thank you to everybody that's here listening. Of course, Colleen and I can be found at ReikiLifestyle.com. All right, bye now.
Bye.